I'll start now this way from you, because no, I do have the perfect question, because someone said in MUP we trust, right? How and why?
Well, it's working. Yeah. It's a strange thing I realized 10 years ago when I started really working on transit maps, is nobody questions a map. You give someone a map, he just takes it for granted that it's the truth revealed. You take newspapers and read an article. Depending on what newspaper is, you know if it's leaning more towards this option or that option, who is writing it, is it really true, are they trying to manipulate me? Not with maps. You take a map, it's just true. You don't question it. So for us cartographers, it's a fantastic tool, because you can manipulate people because they believe your map, but at the same time, you have to be very careful, because you have a huge responsibility in manipulating people. If they find out your tool is dead, you cannot use it anymore. So we enter into ethics with that. What are the maps for? Because no map is neutral, every map is political, because you as a cartographer choose what will be on the map and what will not be on the map, because you cannot have everything on. So you must make choices. You cannot be neutral.
You want to add? Yes.
Working?
Yep.
Okay. I'm not sure. I think that what you were talking about, where you were like drawing a line between static and dynamic, is not where I would draw the line. I would draw the line maybe between personal and public, which is close to what you were giving as an example, because you were referring to like Google Maps and fixed maps on stations or whatever. But I think when it gets dynamic, when everything gets dynamic, the separation between personal and public still remains. We will still have maybe some virtual displays projected into air, I don't know, which are available to everyone, and we will have some magic devices which are in our pockets or on our eyes, which know everything about us and which are for us. And I think maps will be always there. There will be some forms of them. We've seen so many different kinds of maps, so many different approaches to mapping. 3D, some perspective maps when you need to show some vertical city with some part which is far, far away, like everything. And there are so much more maps that we haven't seen, but most of us have seen somewhere else. And we all had some examples that we could maybe add to some talks. So, and we will get more of that. As we get more mediums, as we get more devices, more ways to present those maps, we will get more maps, we will get more ways to interact with maps. And again, as you said, everyone is accustomed to maps. Everyone, when you were saying about newspapers, I was thinking, before you finished your sentence, that in a newspaper, when you illustrate some event that had any relationship to like place on Earth or in a city, they would show a map, and it's just the most obvious thing to do, to show the place. So everyone understands that. So I think, yeah, we are gonna be relevant, even there will be no printing whatsoever, because somebody will have to do all these things anyway.
I think the only thing I'd really add is, and Jürg's really touched on it already, the power of a map, to the subliminal power of mapping, and the way it almost literally shapes your image of your surroundings. You know, as Kevin Lynch said, the image of the city, and something we've really realized for several decades now. Yeah, that's not going away. That's always going to be there. One interesting comment I had recently from a customer, not really against mapping, but just be careful what you show, was that they were trying to be really useful and helpful and show when their rail network was disrupted, and they had line closures on and different information about this weekend, that weekend, and you can't go here. And oh, but we're doing it for improvement work there, but then a month later there'll be something else, and they thought, oh, we'll communicate this via the medium of a map. And the comments they got back were, this is making me trust you less, because I look at this and all I see is exceptions. So almost don't tell me that things are going to be messed up, like just tell me what's your core offer, and maybe introduce, the disruption element subtly at certain times through different channels, but be careful about representing on a map, because that just says to me that your actual real-world network is not reliable. So I found that very interesting.
Thank you so much. And again, and thank you so much for ending your talk the way you ended, reassuring. I was already, ready to reassure that we will still be relevant, but you eloquently put it. And I think going back to what we discussed also yesterday, to make bold statements and something, I want to propose a bold statement, and then you can, elaborate on that. I want to be safe, so I'd say 60 years from now, 50 years from now, I won't be there, so who cares? Apple Vision Pro will be just ranked as one of fiasco, because nobody actually engage in the trade-off of wearing a mask, a helmet on their face all time around. And we would appreciate the fact that there's even a transportability, for example, of small paper maps. And we will you will rethink an approach to what is possible in the digital realm, just because it's possible. So we would have, to quote my friend Roberto Casetti, we would rebel against this digital colonialism, and we would have discovered that's something that makes us humans. That's something that's why, if you think about it, it's quite incredible that 3,000 years old map and a contemporary map, they are extremely similar. It's not that, oh my, we advanced so much in cartography. We've been more sophisticated, but the basic principle is there, because maybe they are attached to the same things that we evolved. And for example, when we relate to each other, we will always relate the visu rather than, oh no, let's put a face, an artificial, and let our persona or our avatar talk. So how do you see, again, the relevance of the map? Is it something that we have to, because you briefly mentioned, hey, we're entering ethics here, and I really want that. It's a fantastic opportunity to claim a role. Every map is political, and we're dealing with ethics. My goodness, our role is that important. Hey, people in the world, stop talking about calling in a philosopher, or a theologian, or a politician when there's a big problem to solve. Let's call a designer also. No, let's bring a designer also on the table. What is your vision about it? You see yourself, your practice relevant, again, 20 years from now, in which form? What have you contributed? And I know, I can answer too, because I've seen some of your work already affecting a city, changing for good a city. So
I'd go, in that direction. It's not even what we think or what we want. It's just happening. The digital era that started a couple of decades ago was one-dimensional. You had a list of results and direct links to things. And only recently has it become two-dimensional, where you search more on a map than on a list. And I think that this is going to evolve to encompass the whole digital realm, simply because of the sheer amount of information that is served. You cannot encompass that information on a list. You need a second dimension. In a list you see 10 answers. On a map you see 1,000 at a glance. And when you explore you see 10,000. So you go orders of magnitudes more to process all the information that is surrounding you and that is being multiplied every day. So I'm not saying we're going to third dimension. That's much more difficult to apprehend. But the digital platforms such as Google Maps, Apple Maps, Naver, and others have taught people to use that second dimension, to use maps every day, which was not the case. Most people did not use maps. They were afraid of them, or they did not know how to use them. And now most people are getting used to them. So now maps can be used not only for showing a real space, but for showing any amount of information with the relationships. So maps are going to expand to a realm much wider than what we know today. So talk about relevance.
Thank you. Ilya.
Yeah, I'm also thinking that a lot more services would be integrated into maps, a lot more things that you do in your life that you usually not think of something that's connected to mapping will be there. Like when digital maps started appearing, they were just digital versions of maps that we were used to before on paper. And then like transit started to appear, and then some other information like businesses started to appear because they realized that we could add dynamic information. And now to see what time some grocery store stops working, I would go to the map. I would not even consider looking at their website. I don't know if they even have it. I will go to the map, I will find that grocery store, I would tap it, and I will see their schedule. And now when I look for a bus route in my city and it shows me the route, I could order a taxi directly from my mapping application, even though taxi is a separate application, but they are integrated, and it suggests that it would cost this amount of money, and maybe I would prefer a taxi. At some point, I will be able, or maybe I'm already able, I don't know, I haven't tried this, to tap a grocery store and order a delivery from there inside the map application, and who knows what else would be there. So I very much like the thing that you said about like moving from lists to two-dimensional things, because a lot of our lives happen in this two-dimensional world because we cannot fly. So everything can be eventually integrated into maps, and we'll have a lot of work to make sure it's all legible and it all makes sense, because there's so much of that stuff. So I think that in 20 years there will be nothing magical, even though we may be wearing some devices, but we will still have to solve the same problems with information density, with priorities of layering and everything. So we'll have some interesting work to do.
Thank you. Sergio.
I think when I think about maybe not 50 years, I won't be here either, but in 50 years' time, certainly in the future, I think about who owns the map, like who's actually going to be in control of it. And then I think it's really interesting what you said, Jörg, about how people have become very proficient map users. But is that going to translate in the future to people becoming map creators? You know, you can imagine the tools are almost there already, where you can design your own maps, you can issue them, publish them, distribute them yourselves. Are people going to use this more and more as a medium for describing what they plan to do or what they've been doing, or is it going to become that kind of, you know, that kind of, not really art form, just a natural extension of conversation? Does that mean that people are going to take back ownership of that, or is it still going to be these huge, fairly faceless, you know, 1 or 2, 3, 4 in the world organizations that are controlling not just the look of the map, but the content of the map, which is so important? So that's what I wonder about.
Thank you. As usual, I just want to check if there are any questions for the panel. Oh, okay, you and then Zach.
I would like to focus on the user, because you know, you say that in maps a user will trust, but there are also non-users. They can't use them. I remember precisely that when I was asked to recreate the RETP map collection in '87, I've asked 2 years after a customer survey to verify if the budget spent was useful or not. So because I was in the marketing unit before, so I wanted to be sure. And I had been troubled by my boss, former boss, who had said, the map is finished. So he had said that, he was very convincing, and he was guessing what could happen, and he not guessing. He was saying what could happen. I was not agreeing him, but in some words, the smartphone has saved the map, because when it was only static, I was seeing that there was a decline. But the point I want to say is that through this customer survey, we have seen how the brain was working and why people couldn't use a map, especially a bus map. And it was linked to very medical dimensions, the degree of history, the degree of obsessionality. So I think that we could refresh these studies, because it's, for me, 30 years old. And now, because there is no mutation of the brain, we have not doubled our brain because we are living at the same time in the physical world and the digital world. But something is changing. The generation change. So perhaps in the future transit mapping symposiums, we could open the discussion to people like philosophers or doctors, psychologists, to be more sure about on which dimension of the human brain we could rely. Because, in fact, I'm not sure that we are not surfing, convincing ourselves. I trust in maps, but should I be sure? So, what is your opinion about that?
Our colleague Mark van Gegen from Netherlands Railways confirmed recently in his study that he shared with us that we are facing basically three types of users. To put it simple, we have so-called spatial navigators, people who understand space and are very comfortable with the map that represents that space. Basically 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, to put things simple. Then we have 1/3 of narrative navigators, people who do not have a sense of space and who like a sequence of events. Go straight, 300 meters at the bakery, turn right. A sequence which is the same as cooking. Take an egg, break it, fry it, etc. And then we have the last category, which is the one we less care about, let's say. Nobody takes it into consideration up front, is the people who have no sense of space and cannot follow a sequence. So it's old people with dementia, very young children, a very anxious tourist who is in an environment that is overwhelming him and cannot think anymore. So that category we're not really taking much into consideration. And what happened with those digital tools that we have is that they have blurred those categories. That somebody who's in one category with the digital tools can be in another one. That I see as a big novelty in that who is the user. We know even less now who is our user and what he feels at any given time with one tool or with another tool. So I absolutely agree with you that discussion should be open. Who are the users? How do they function? Are we really addressing their needs or not? We know we are addressing a part of the needs, but is there a whole realm that remains hidden from us?
You want to add on that, or?
The only thing I can really think of is that we don't ask ourselves that question enough, who we're serving and how successful we're doing it. I've often found that on the operator side, customer information is just, if it's even given like an individual tick box in a survey, is not drilled down any deeper than that. So it's just basic stuff. Was there information? Did it help you? Yes, no, but never exploring why not. So yeah, the more we ask those kind of questions, the better the end product will be at the end of the day.
You want to add anything? Or?
I'm not sure how relevant this is, but I just remembered that very recently I started to go to a particular place in my city by driving. And before, I wasn't used to using navigation in my car because I knew all the roads which I ever needed to use. But in this particular case, I know the roads. There are several roads, but depending on the traffic situation, it may take 20 minutes or it may take 40 minutes depending on which road you take. So I had to build it into my routine to check with the navigator to pick the right road. And what I was thinking is that I don't want to see the map because I know the city. I don't want to see any of that. I don't want to even touch my phone. I don't want to plug it into my car, nothing. I just want something to tell me a couple of street names which will describe the whole route to me because I know all those streets. Just tell me, take street A and then street D. Or next morning it says, today take street C and then take that bridge. And that will be enough. And nothing gives me that information. So I had to look at the map. I have to understand what are all those lines on the map. And most of those turns are all the same every morning. So I have to zoom in to check like particular 2 or 3 streets that I need to choose from. So I think when AI gets better, I guess in a couple of months, maybe it will just know that's the question that I have in my head. It should look at the map. I don't want to look at the map. I've seen enough maps. Just tell me which 2 streets are relevant. So maybe this is something that will be useful to so many people. Because again, not many people want to look at the map, but they still need some direction. And for some people, it's an order of things or turns or whatever. And maybe at some point we will be building tools like this that will be helping us in this way. I don't know. And that will be useful to another category of users who cannot use maps today. I don't know.
Thank you. While the mic goes to Zach, I just want to reassure you about one thing, and it's the contribution of philosophers to the debate. Few months from now, the Cognitive Life of Maps by Roberto Casati, the philosopher I've been lucky enough to work with some 20 years now, will be out for MIT Press. It's going to be extremely relevant. It's going to be a sensational book, and it's everything about really cognition and maps. It's going to be there, detail, eventually, with a level of attention and detail and scholarship that we haven't had yet in our field. So that's the book I strongly recommend everybody to wait for. Cognitive Life of Maps by Roberto Casati and Instituto Unicode with MIT Press. It's not giving me percentages, but he's a great friend. Zach.
North up or heads up?
Sorry?
North up or heads up?
What do you mean?
Maps.
Flat.
Ah, right. Sorry.
Yes.
The only solution is flat. You put it flat, just as the ground, and then it's obvious that it's showing the right directions. Otherwise, it's a matter of religion. I like north top or heads up, but testing shows that you cannot confirm it. Some people consider that what is in front of us is down. Some consider it's up. So since you are trying to address millions, you will never be right. There's no right answer to that question. It's like just the same for past and present. Yeah. We tend to say, oh, the past is behind us and the present is in front. And you have many other places on Earth, in Buryatia, in Madagascar, where they consider that the past is in front. That's what is coming. The past is in front. That's what you see. You know what it is. You've seen it. It's there. And the future, it's what you don't see. You have no idea what will happen. So it's exactly reverse.
Well, if I may, I would question this as a methodology, because if there's just 2 cultures outside the world, it could be like the outliers not demonstrating a rule. And my point about the maps is that I would say that there are aspects that are quasi-religious, so okay, we don't go there, that's the way I love it, whatever. But there are aspects that are actually quite true. So if it's a north-oriented map, please don't put it on a on a wall that is not south-facing. Otherwise, it gives me a mirror image of the reality. Or if that map doesn't point north, just don't make me think that it does. Indicate it. I have no, for example, personally, I'm all for experimenting all kind of formats, depending on the context. Just the things that I, as a user, I have this stance. I trust this map. So if a distance is presented a certain way, I do put things together. I work through analogies. Yeah, we all work through the analogies. So if that length, and I feel it's accurate, then, oh, no, it's not. Oh, so it's the diagram. Make sure that my ape brain understand is a diagram and not a representation, an actual, so scale. Scale is fundamental. So.
I agree with the scale. It's on small scale, like legible London, the neighborhood. Well, there we can discuss, should it be turned or not? On a large scale, if you rotate all of London, you're in trouble.
Yeah. Yep. If we have time, I could end with one question, very, very selfish. Actually, not selfish just for me, but also for my students, okay? Give them one thing that you think that I probably am not mentioning in the book, in the class, and you don't know, maybe I will surprise it, but that they really should know about wayfinding. A topic, a map, a character, an author. Don't say, yo, come in a guy, I will take care of that, don't worry, but anything else. Sergio, something that they really should know.
Ilya first, and then I'll...
Ilya first.
Wait, what? Do you want me to name a book or what?
A book, an author, a place, or something that is relevant in wayfinding. It was relevant maybe for you, and it's maybe not in the canon, so it's not the classic. Oh, Harry Beck.
Well, I don't know what you're teaching. Maybe
that's exactly my point.
Yeah, well, maybe what I say is like everyone knows already.
Well, let's see.
Okay. Well, usually when I see the maps, most people don't care about how you make the curves of the lines. They make them from pieces of a circle. They make radial roundings, and they look ugly as hell. Never use these roundings that are based on radius. You have to, well, if you use Figma, you can automatically do these beautiful roundings that are based on how things bend in real life. But in Illustrator, you have to spend some time with Bezier curves. Yeah, because it's one of those things where if you see it once and you see the difference, you can't unsee it. And on every single map, no matter how beautiful it is, your eye is like, yeah, but why are those turns so ugly? Why couldn't they just make the turns beautiful? So if you are not doing that yet, start doing it. That would be my very small advice.
Thank you so much.
Which is very important to me.
I don't know if this is controversial or not, but it's more and more my opinion. No legends, no keys, ever.
Agreed.
But you have the right to another one.
Go to Venice. If you want to learn what wayfinding is, you go to Venice. You have small streets winding around the city. You have canals. It's all interconnected but separate. And you have different scale. Go there and see if you can manage to find your way through the city on different modes. Then you will learn the complexity of wayfinding.
Okay, so we are on time. I would just ask, because there is also some other panelists in the audience, if you want to contribute this for my students. Yeah, Samuel. We're keeping Richard healthy and in good shape.
No, I wanted to actually add on to what you said just now about designers. I'm not sure if this is what you're trying to get to, but the relevance of designers. Actually, after LTA, I joined an innovation lab in the Public Service Division in Singapore. So we have a group of designers actually influencing policy design, and we help public officers understand their problem better using design sensibilities. So there is room for designers in policy making and influencing, like what Yogesh mentioned, influencing from the top. So there's hope. Yeah, and also I wanted to tie back to just now we were talking about in maps we trust. So back in Singapore also, we actually had the chance to shadow 30 elderlies because we have the active mobility unit. So they gathered 30 elderlies of different types. So for example, some of them could be living alone, some of them have mobility issues. So we have them like on a task, and we get them to navigate the system as is, and then we shadow them literally with no help, and I just observe what they did. So I could literally ask the lady, like, why did you stand there for so long? Why did you wait? Or what were you trying to find? Because the answer was right in front of us. For me, it was very obvious. So then she said, oh, she was actually looking for a particular sign of a particular color. So she trusted the system in one way, but the system failed her by creating a lot of different variations. So I feel like for us, we have to be very sensitive about how difficult your system is to learn. So this was a huge takeaway for me, which is why, if you notice, the new science system that we designed for Singapore is kind of like dumbed down, because we wanted to make the system easy to learn. And while doing that, I actually realized that what makes a system easy to learn is that you have to help the user ask questions. So by displaying answers and making them expect answers actually kind of make people not so smart and not so in tune with using wayfinding solutions. So the previous system that we had, right, kind of, because you asked for a certain building, we added the building on the sign. And then when the building is not there, the sign was a mistake. So that became like a, whoa, we have 10 different landmarks on a directional sign, and people started to expect more and more, and you have people just standing in the middle of a crowded walkway to wait for answers. So what we needed to do was reduce answers and have them like, oh, if there's no answers here, there should be somewhere else, and we wanted them to redirect to find answers for yourself. So that was the motivation behind the design. So I guess what I wanted to share with especially your students would be, your system should help people learn the system. It shouldn't just be how pretty or how nice it is at a particular spot. All of them should actually make people think about, oh, so this is what you're trying to convey, and this is how I'm going to navigate. Yeah, hope that
Thank you.
helps.
Thank you so much. So on this note, I'll leave the mic to Richard to maybe announce the...
Well, so that's it. Thank you very much for the panel.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.